pues someterlo ahí en la esquina delante de Khabib, que son tan chulos y arrogantes que la verdad que me encantaría ahí someterlo delante de él. Y si después quiere pasar Khabib, también le piso la cabeza con mucho gusto. Siendo lo que han dicho, se han sentado en una mesa y sabe lo que han dicho, que le den por Arman. Así que, Arman, desde aquí que te den por el culo desde miles de kilómetros y juzgarme y criticarme, pero después cuando me tienes en ese octógono te empiezas a dar cuenta de que yo no soy Jack de la Madalena, que yo no soy Dan Hooker, que yo no soy todos esos paquetes a los que te has enfrentado anteriormente.
So here's the deal with Ilia Topuria. The featherweight champ might be sitting out for the next 5 to 6 months, dealing with some personal issues, but that definitely hasn't stopped him from talking trash and creating serious waves in the division. This guy recently did an interview where he completely tore into both Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. And when I say he went all out, I mean he absolutely unleashed everything he had. Topuria is walking around with this unshakable belief that he can demolish Islam Makhachev in every single aspect of fighting. And here's the crazy part. He's claiming he'll tap him out right there while Khabib Nurmagomedov watches from the sidelines. Now that takes some serious confidence. He's talking up his grappling as this secret weapon that nobody sees coming, completely convinced this would be the kind of explosive, must-see battle that would have fans losing their minds. The picture he paints is pretty intense. First, he breaks Islam down with devastating strikes, hurts him badly on the feet, then wraps it all up with a submission finish, and even with Khabib right there watching every second of it, Topuria swears he's got zero intimidation factor and is ready to completely own that moment.
Tengo la sensación de que olvidan un poco cuál es su base. Perdóname, pero yo siempre digo que eres un grappler y te pido por favor que no me digas completo y me gustaría preguntarte cuál es tu punto fuerte, realmente.
A ver, yo considero que mi punto fuerte es el suelo. Yo considero que en el suelo me puedo desenvolver en cualquier manera, que puedo sacarte una finalización de cualquier posición. Pero sí que es verdad que últimamente he aceptado que no es lo que el público quiere ver tanto, aunque con Islam tal vez sea algo que el público quiera ver, ¿no? Dominarlo de pie, darle sus 3-4 manos en el punto que le tenga que dar y después someterlo ahí en la esquina delante de Khabib, que son tan chulos y arrogantes que la verdad que me encantaría ahí someterlo delante de él. Y si después quiere pasar Khabib, también le piso la cabeza con mucho.
Now here's where Topuria really gets interesting. He's positioning himself as something completely new for Islam Makhachev, a puzzle that nobody in Islam's entire fight history has presented before. And that's saying something considering the killers Islam has already faced. He's convinced this matchup is what everyone's begging to see happen. You see it everywhere people talk about fights online. But then he drops this challenge. He straight up questions whether Islam actually has the guts to take this fight and just laughs off all the keyboard warrior criticism like it's background noise. Topuria hammers home this key point though. When that cage door slams shut and it's just the two of them in there throwing down for real, all those comparisons to Charles Oliveira or Dan Hooker become completely meaningless. He sees himself as a totally different level of threat than any of those guys. Someone packing legitimate knockout power that can end everything with one perfectly timed shot.
Cuando defienda mi título en 155 libras, veremos a ver. Ya no quiero seguir haciendo predicciones acerca de nadie porque todo el mundo habla muchísimo con el teclado, todo el mundo quiere brillar, todo el mundo tiene mucha valentía, mucho coraje, pero cuando llega la hora de la verdad, no es así. Y todo el mundo sabe que es un combate que quiere verlo todo el mundo y él por alguna razón hasta ahora no lo ha aceptado. Y después habla demasiado, es muy fácil hablar desde miles de kilómetros y juzgarme y criticarme, pero después cuando me tienes en ese octógono te empiezas a dar cuenta de que yo no soy Jack de la Madalena, que yo no soy Dan Hooker, que yo no soy todos esos paquetes a los que te has enfrentado anteriormente. Yo soy algo muy diferente y cuando te ponga mi mano derecha encima vas a ver que vas a tener un sueño muy, muy largo.
But then you have Georges St-Pierre, the absolute legend himself, breaking down why Islam Makhachev holds that pound-for-pound #1 spot right now. And when GSP speaks, people listen because he's been exactly where these guys want to be. Here's what makes GSP's take so smart, though. He makes it clear that having that best fighter label doesn't automatically guarantee you walk out with your hand raised every single time. That's the reality of this game. GSP draws this perfect comparison to team sports, explaining how the team with the best record doesn't always win the championship because it all comes down to who shows up and performs when the lights are brightest and the pressure is crushing. GSP knows that even the most dominant fighters can slip up, make one wrong read, or get caught by something they never saw coming. His breakdown is that if they ran this fight 10 times, Islam probably wins 8 or 9 of them, but there's always that one moment where he makes a mistake, takes a bad angle, or gets a little too comfortable, and that's exactly when he becomes vulnerable. So here's what I want to know. How exactly would you game plan against someone like Islam Makhachev?
Is he just too good right now, or like what would you do?
I think right now he's probably on paper the best fighter.
Yeah.
Probably pound for pound beat Islam Makhachev. It doesn't mean it's not because you're the best that you're not gonna lose. It's not the best fighter that wins the fight. It's not the best team that wins the game. It's the team that play the best the night of the game. Same thing in fighting. People for some reason believe that fighting is different. Always the strongest man that wins. Not true. If you zig when you should have zagged, you make a mistake, boom,
Caught.
you're cut. By the way, it happened to Islam Makhachev. If you saw his
Early
loss,
in-
he
yeah.
got cut. Yeah, it could happen
Yeah.
again. I believe if he would fight that guy 10 times out of 10 times, he would probably beat him 9 times. But that one time he got clipped, and that can happen.
Georges
St-Pierre breaks down the only realistic path to beating Islam Makhachev, and it's not some magical secret technique or lucky shot. You have to match his wrestling and stay dangerous everywhere this fight could possibly go. And I mean absolutely everywhere, with no weaknesses, for him to attack. He brings up Islam's early scrap with his former teammate Mansour Barnawi, pointing out how Barnawi actually gave Islam some real headaches by doing 3 crucial things perfectly. First, he defended takedowns with solid technique and timing. Second, when he did hit the mat, he scrambled back up instead of staying there. Third, he kept Islam honest on the feet with legitimate striking threats. According to GSP's detailed analysis, and the guy studied this sport like a science, that particular fight contains the exact roadmap needed to give Makhachev serious problems. All the answers are right there on film if you know what to look for.
To beat Islam Makhachev, he's very skilled. I think you would need a guy that can match his wrestling in a way that either to counter his takedown, or if he get put down, manage to scramble back up and create distance and also fight him standing up. I think you need a guy that put pressure on him with a lot of fakes and feints. There's a guy that gave him a lot of trouble. He was from France. He was one of my training partner. If you go and check that fight online, his name was Mansour Barnawi. He was one of my best training partner when I was getting ready for fights, and he gave him a lot of trouble. And it was in Makhachev early career, but if you look at this fight, it could have gone the other way as well. It went to decision, and the way Mansour Barnawi fought Makhachev, that's the way you need to fight. A lot of pressure, create a lot of scramble, and pressure.
This whole call-out game and back-and-forth drama is absolutely wild entertainment for everyone watching from home. But here's where things get really heated. Topuria completely dismissed any suggestions that he was ducking Arman Tsarukyan, and his response was dripping with sarcasm, instead of showing any real worry about these accusations flying around. He painted Arman as someone who gets handed golden opportunities, but then finds ways to mess them up when crunch time arrives, making it pretty obvious that real championship material fights through pain and obstacles instead of finding excuses when things get uncomfortable. Topuria's whole attitude made it crystal clear that he found these criticisms absolutely ridiculous, almost offensive in how off-base they were, and he went straight after Arman's mental toughness rather than questioning his actual fighting ability. This isn't about whether Arman has skills. It's about whether he'll step up and deliver when absolutely everything is riding on the line.
Quería preguntarte directamente, toda la gente dice que tienes miedo de Arman y te tengo que preguntar por eso.
Yeah. Bueno, al final ya sabes lo que pienso sobre la opinión de los demás. Arman, bueno, es un buen luchador, ha tenido sus oportunidades en las que se ha negado a competir, ha tenido su oportunidad de pelear por el campeonato del mundo, se ha retirado del combate. Todos los luchadores hemos enfrentado dolores de espalda, dolores de brazo, de pierna, de todo, y aún así nos hemos presentado en el combate. Él por alguna razón no. Y él sabe cuál ha sido esa conversación interna. Tal vez se ha tenido que cambiar los calzones después de tomar esa decisión.
Topuria attacked this whole situation from a really smart angle, looking at it like a promoter would when deciding who deserves the biggest opportunities. He questioned whether Arman Tsarukyan could actually be counted on when the stakes reached their absolute peak. He suggested that multiple incidents had seriously hurt people's confidence in Arman's reliability and professionalism, especially considering how much the UFC had invested in putting him on massive high-profile cards where millions of dollars hang in the balance. Topuria painted a picture of someone whose careless decisions put way more than just personal reputation at risk. They threaten entire events and jeopardize financial commitments the promotion has made to sponsors, venues, and broadcast partners. He made it sound like Arman doesn't appreciate the incredible platform he's been given. Someone who doesn't realize how lucky he is to be in this position at all.
Si yo ahora te hablo como promotor, darle la oportunidad a una persona que le das una promoción tan grande, inviertes tanto dinero para promocionarlo de esa forma, ponerlo en una cartelera tan grande para que te lo juegue de esa manera, claro. Es muy complicado volver a depositarle confianza. Después ha tenido como otro combate ahora estelar en la que le ha metido un cabezazo en un careo. Es como que no demuestra mucha inteligencia, tampoco demuestra como que el cariño que le está dando la UFC en sus promociones, porque lo que no entiende es que la gente está invirtiendo dinero para promocionarlo y él con un simple cabezazo está poniendo en riesgo todo ello, porque el contrincante puede recibir un corte, un daño innecesario y el combate pudiera llegar a caerse, ¿verdad?
Topuria delivers this brutal, completely unfiltered message straight to Arman Tsarukyan, making it absolutely obvious that any respect between them has been completely destroyed, and I mean, there's nothing left whatsoever. He makes it clear that trust is shattered beyond any possible repair at this point, and that repeated problems have pushed everything way past the point where they could ever work things out, speaking with real emotion and genuine frustration in his voice. Topuria shows that whatever patience or support might have existed before is totally gone now, replaced with pure hostility and disgust. There's no coming back from this kind of public destruction.
Cuando tú ves que tienes una persona enfrente a la que le estás dando cariño, en la que estás invirtiendo el dinero que realmente te está devolviendo las cosas de esa manera, al final tú le seguirías dando cariño.
No.
Bueno, pues eso es lo que están haciendo, lo que han dicho, se han sentado en una mesa y ¿sabe lo que han dicho? Que le den por el culo a Arman. Así que, Arman, desde aquí, que te den por el culo.
Paddy Pimblett also goes after Arman Tsarukyan directly, saying he's not even slightly surprised that Arman got passed over for the interim title fight opportunity when that decision came down. He frames it as the natural consequence of reliability problems rather than any questions about skill or fighting talent, pointing to repeated mistakes and terrible timing that, in his opinion, based on what he's witnessed firsthand, have seriously damaged Tsarukyan's reputation with UFC executives and decision-makers. Paddy drives home this essential point that at the absolute highest level of this sport, being professional and dependable matters just as much as raw fighting ability and natural talent. You could be the most gifted fighter on the planet, but if you can't be trusted when it counts most, that becomes a deal-breaking problem.
I mean, I don't expect you to have any sympathy for Arman Tsarukyan, but you know, were you surprised that you could make this interim title without him in it?
No, he's bored. Don't really know anyone who wants to see Arman Tsarukyan fight. I listed so many reasons why he hasn't got this title shot in an interview the other week. Pulled out on a day's notice when he said he had a bad back when he never. He just couldn't make weight to ruin the main event. Punched the fan walking out of the cage. Probably cost the UFC a lot more money. Nearly ruined another main event for the first fight in Qatar by headbutting Dan Hooker. Just don't be a little spoiled brat and you might end up getting in good graces.
Paddy Pimblett doubles down on his criticism of Arman Tsarukyan, emphasizing that he saw this whole situation coming from miles away when Arman got left out of interim title fight discussions. He points directly at reliability concerns over any doubts about fighting skills, highlighting repeated mistakes and poor timing that, in his view, from what he's personally observed, have damaged Tsarukyan's standing with UFC management and the people making these crucial decisions. Pimblett stresses that at this elite level of competition where millions of dollars and massive pay-per-view events are at stake, professionalism matters just as much as talent and fighting ability. You absolutely need both elements to succeed at this level.
It's his own fault, lad. It's his own family's fault for letting him be a spoiled little baby his whole life, lad, because he's got money. You know what I mean? He thinks that he can just like pay his way out of anything. Well, nah, lad, you got told you better work your way back to the title. And beating Dan Hooker, who can't grapple to save his life, doesn't do that. You know what I mean? But it is funny because he's left out in the cold now because Charles is fighting Max and I'm fighting Justin. And like, the next person down the rankings is Dan Hooker, who he's just beat. You know what I mean? He's going to have to rematch Gamrot or something and try and beat Gamrot. Because for now, nobody gives a flying about Arman Tsarukyan. It's not my fault. Arman Tsarukyan's an absolute sausage.
It's not.
It's not my fault. He can't control his emotions and starts headbutting people at weigh-ins and pulling out the night before fights and hitting fans when he's walking out. That's not on me. That's on him. And he knows why he's not fighting for the belt. He needs to stop.
But Jorge Masvidal comes at this from a totally different direction, passionately defending Arman Tsarukyan and arguing that he's being unfairly held back and overlooked despite clearly ranking among the division's absolute elite fighters based on actual performance and results. He suggests that Arman should just focus on his work and keep demolishing top-ranked opponents to make his case so completely undeniable that they won't be able to ignore him anymore, presenting him as a leading lightweight contender and crucial piece in determining the division's future direction. Masvidal's message is simple but powerful. Let your fighting inside that cage do all the talking for you.
Like Arman should have been way over Gagey, and I feel like Arman should be way over Patty, you know, but he doesn't have that hiccup. So what does he do? Does he sit out? Or does he go out there and make his case? Get another one of these top 5 guys, Arman, I say, take their head off because there's nobody there that could beat him, and keep him moving, brother. Then they can't deny you, know. I think he has to go out there, just beat somebody else, and not even Dana White can say, no, I'm not giving this guy a title shot. After that, there's no way, you know. And the fight to see in 2026 is Arman versus Ilia. Those are the best guys at 155 pounds right now. Let's see it.
Now, Chael Sonnen thinks Topuria should get stripped of that title. And his reasoning actually makes a lot of sense when you break it down. He argues that interim belts exist only for champions who are sidelined by actual injury or serious medical issues, not for personal reasons or scheduling conflicts that could be resolved. He says if a champion misses fights for reasons beyond legitimate medical problems, there's no real justification to protect that belt and let them keep it. Sonnen admits his position sounds harsh and might anger some fans, but he insists it's purely logical from a competitive sports perspective, pointing out that fighters have faked injuries before to avoid tough matchups, so simply claiming unavailability isn't sufficient justification without proper medical documentation to back it up.
The interim belt is for those that are dealing with an illness or an injury. If we would like to show grace to an undisputed champion because he's missing matches specifically for illness or injury, and the moment Ilia informs us that he is missing matches for anything outside of the criteria of illness or injury, that's why you strip him. That there is no precedence for an interim championship. And I had never thought of that, and I thought it was very cold. I didn't like it. I got in my car, I went back to my hotel, I was staying by myself, and I thought about it. And I go, man, there's actually a point to that. If Ilia is missing matches, and all he's got to do is make the claim. He doesn't have to be telling the truth. A lot of guys didn't tell the truth. A lot of guys have missed fights and said they're hurt because they didn't want to make the walk.
Chael Sonnen clarifies that he personally likes Topuria as a fighter and respects everything he's accomplished in his career. But he still thinks the title absolutely has to be stripped regardless of personal feelings about the situation. He explains that unless Topuria officially claims an injury with legitimate medical proof and proper documentation, even though those medical reports can sometimes be questionable or relatively easy to obtain, the UFC has no valid reason to let him keep that belt around his waist. It's about establishing and maintaining consistent standards for how champions are treated across the board.
But if you're making a claim outside of illness or injury, to my understanding, the person at the UFC is correct. You're not eligible. You got to be stripped. I think that is a fair point. I don't want him stripped. I'm on Ilia's side of this. I don't really like what he's going through. I think he shared more with us than he has to. I also think he's innocent. He seems like a good guy. I really don't think that he would have done these things. However, yeah, they got to strip him. If he's not making the claim that he's injured and has some kind of a doctor report to back it up, as bogus as those can be, he's got to be stripped.
Meanwhile, Islam Makhachev is sitting there ready and eager to fight absolutely anyone in his division who wants to step up and challenge him. But if he gets to choose, he personally wants Kamaru Usman, which would create this absolutely massive super fight that everyone would want to see. Henry Cejudo also thinks Kamaru Usman can present a real, genuine threat to Islam Makhachev, and he's not just hyping this up for entertainment value. He points out that Usman's specific fighting style and wrestling background makes him significantly more difficult to take down than most fighters Islam has faced, and he highlights Usman's powerful, technically precise 1-2 combination that has knocked out elite-level competition throughout his career. Cejudo adds this crucial detail that Islam has been hurt before in previous fights. It's right there on video, and that unexpected clean shots landing flush can completely flip the entire outcome of a fight in one split second.
Kamaru does have the stylistic matchup to not get taken down. And then he's got a beautiful 1-2. And that's all it takes in the sport of mixed martial arts. Bop, bop. You know what I'm saying? And Islam has been hurt. The time that he did lose, he did get knocked out. So it's those punches that you don't see coming that could change everything. And Kamaru Usman has the speed and has the power and has the experience. But he's going up against Islam Makhachev, who is... He's good, man. He can kick. He can wrestle. He could. That's the biggest thing, bro. Is it's his defense. He's always here, and then he level changes, and he kicks, goes up. Very, very good. But you would probably favor Islam, but I would not count out the Nigerian Nightmare. If anybody could get it done, it is Kamaru Usman.
Luke Rockhold argues that Islam Makhachev perfectly demonstrates and exposes the massive gap between truly world-class elite grapplers and everyone else who gets praised for having decent grappling skills. He suggests that some fighters get constantly hyped for their ground game and grappling abilities until they face someone like Islam, who operates on a completely different planet of technical mastery and understanding. From Rockhold's perspective, and he's been training with elite grapplers his entire career, matchups like this reveal pretty quickly who has genuine high-level grappling substance built over years of dedicated training and who gets exposed when put in front of the absolute best practitioners in the entire sport.
Like, you think everyone thinks Charles Oliveira is good until Islam gets on top of him, right? Charles Oliveira sucks comparably to real good grapplers. He's not even near.
He's more of a strictly jiu-jitsu
you just know, like, the substance of a guy like what Islam is versus a guy like Charles. Yeah, you know.
Israel Adesanya praised Islam Makhachev's feinting as one of the most elite and polished skills in the entire UFC roster right now. He highlighted specifically how Makhachev manipulates opponents' reactions and controls the rhythm of exchanges, using repeated feints to create openings and opportunities, instead of just charging forward with wild, reckless attacks. This demonstrates a striking intelligence and fight IQ that separates him from even the sport's top fighters who have excellent striking fundamentals. It's that next-level mental approach that makes all the difference when everything is on the line.
Who in the UFC or other promotions does this the best current time?
In the UFC, you look at Islam versus JDM. I was very impressed with Islam's feinting. There was one point, because I always say I overfeint, but that's good because they never know when it's coming. But Islam did that in his last fight with JDM. There was points he just was feinting like 12 times before he even threw a jab. This is later in the fight as well, so I was really impressed with that.
Former UFC fighter Manny Gambrian dug deeper and suggested something really fascinating, that Islam Makhachev actually had trouble relying on traditional wrestling against Arman Tsarukyan in their first encounter, instead having to turn to judo-based techniques and trips to secure takedowns. He described the matchup as one where Arman's wrestling foundation held up surprisingly well against Islam's attacks and pressure. Gambrian pointed out that Islam's successful takedowns came from trips, sweeps, and throws, rather than conventional double legs or single leg attempts. He's emphasizing judo as the crucial factor that made the difference in those grappling exchanges and scrambles. If Arman gets another shot at Islam in a potential rematch, this could become a game-changing detail in how that entire fight unfolds.
He needs to work on his judo.
Arman
needs to work on his judo.
Really? Why?
I guarantee you guys never realized that every time Islam took Arman down, it was judo.
That's not
Islam can't take down Arman in wrestling. I guarantee you guys. Islam is a great wrestler, great judoka. Trust me, he knows judo. When I watch his clips, he can do judo very well.
But that's not his sambo background?
No. That's his judo background.
What is the biggest difference that you could see?
The difference between Islam's sambo background and his judo-based techniques, the movement and timing that Islam brings with his judo approach. It's genuinely special to watch if you understand the nuances of grappling at this level. On the flip side, Bilal Muhammad claims that Islam Makhachev and his manager Ali Abdelaziz are deliberately aiming for an easier matchup by specifically pushing for Kamaru Usman, and that's a calculated strategic business move. He argues that fighters like Shavkat Rakhmonov and others had legitimately earned title shot consideration based on their impressive winning streaks and performances. But Makhachev's camp lobbied hard for a fight that works in his favor stylistically, using their shared management connections with other fighters to influence the decision-making process behind the scenes. It's high-level politics mixed with fighting strategy.
What do I think is going to happen in the division? Let's talk about it. When I look at, especially the welterweight division, Islam being the champion, who do I think deserves it? Who do I think has earned it? I think Michael Morales for sure has earned it. Beating a guy like Sean Brady, being undefeated, finishing Sean Brady. I mean, what else more do you have to do? But we see the seeds planted. We see Islam planting the seeds of Usman should be the next guy. I mean, obviously they have the same manager. Obviously the manager planting seeds in his head of what he thinks should be. Do I think Usman is an easier matchup for him? Of course. The guy's fought one time in 3 years, and he's 1-3. I'm still ahead of you. Even though I lost my last 2 fights, I'm still 2-2. So you could talk, you could say whatever you want. You turned down a fight. You didn't want to fight. And I don't think it should earn you a title fight when you're saying no to fights. But that's my thing. You can call me a hater. I'm just looking at the division from a different lens, what I think, and who I think has earned it. That's my thoughts on that one. We'll see what happens next with them two. Who will get it? If it is Morales, I do think me and Usman make the most sense. Like I said, I've been wanting that fight, asking for the fight. We'll see if we get the fight.
However, Jorge Masvidal views Kamaru Usman as the absolute toughest stylistic challenge for Islam Makhachev at welterweight, pointing specifically to Usman's ability to match elite wrestling credentials while bringing clear physical and experience advantages across every area. He describes Usman as stronger pound for pound, longer with his reach advantage, and more polished on the feet with his boxing technique, suggesting those combined attributes make him a uniquely dangerous matchup for Makhachev that could potentially expose some vulnerabilities we haven't seen before. This wouldn't be a fight Islam could just steamroll through easily like some of his other opponents.
Islam Makhachev is going to fight potentially Usman. I like that fight, you know. That's somebody who could wrestle back into Makhachev. That's somebody that I know personally could wrestle back into Makhachev. That's his forte. That's what Usman started with. It's his grappling background, and Usman's no pushover in the wrestling. I think he's better on the feet. I think he's bigger, he's longer, he's stronger, he has more experience fighting long fights on his feet as well, and using his defensive wrestling, like he did with rat face Kobe's bitch ass, you know, or how he did with the other nut freaking Chasma, whatever his name is. You know, he's very good at fighting those guys. I actually thought he beat the 185-pound champion currently, Chasma, on like a 11-day notice. He just got out of the couch from eating whatever the he was eating, got on a flight, went over there, and beat him 2 out of 3 rounds.
Jorge Masvidal sees Kamaru Usman as Islam Makhachev's absolute most challenging test. If he decides to move up to welterweight, calling it a massive jump in competition level that's completely different from lightweight opposition. He downplays other potential opponents in comparison and emphasizes Usman's defensive wrestling abilities and overall quality as a complete, well-rounded fighter, presenting this potential matchup as one of the most difficult tests Makhachev could possibly face in his entire career. Masvidal also points out that the risk involved might be so significant, with so much legacy on the line, that it's genuinely questionable whether pursuing this fight is even smart from a career preservation standpoint.
I think this is the most dangerous fight for Makhachev at 170, man, with no doubt about it. You know, that's a big step up in competition, I think, from Jack Magdalena, which is phenomenal on the feet. I still think to this day right now has some of the best hands on the roster, and his wrestling defense isn't bad either. He's a good scrambler and stuff, but he's not on Usman's level in any way with the defensive power. You know, Usman could wrestle defensively. I think this is one of the toughest fights for Makhachev right now. You know, I don't know if they're gonna want to take that one.
Meanwhile, Joaquin Buckley thinks Islam Makhachev might genuinely consider hanging up the gloves after beating Kamaru Usman, if that fight actually happens and he emerges victorious. He reasoned that a victory like that would solidify Makhachev's legacy, with multiple championship titles and wins over elite fighters across different weight divisions, leaving very little left to accomplish or prove at that stage of his career. Buckley also mentioned this interesting observation that Makhachev's smaller natural frame at lightweight could potentially become a liability against certain opponents at welterweight, making continued competition at that higher weight class potentially dangerous for his perfect record and hard-earned legacy.
You already know that it's going to be a hard time for Islam if Hamzat had a difficult time, right, trying to take down Uzi. So with that being said, this will be one of the biggest fights that you can make at the welterweight division right now. So what's the holdup? Let's go ahead and run that up. So whoever win that, they can get up out of here. Because this is also my opinion. If Usman wins, right, he's one and done. He said he's moving up to 185 to go get that title against Hamzat for the rematch, right? Cool. Yep. Bye-bye. If Islam wins, he said he's going to hold it down for a long time, but I don't believe that. If Islam gets the fight that he wants, which is Usman, right, that means not only did you submit your name at lightweight over your brother Habib, but then you also got, you know, the double champ status, and then you also be the GOAT at in Usman, right? So you just pulled the John Jones. What else is there to do? What else can he do, right? You be foolish to keep fighting, because to me, Islam is not a natural 170 fighter. He not. And that will get exposed, you know what I'm saying, if he fights a person like myself or Ian Gary or Morales.
So that covers everything from today's breakdown, all this lightweight drama and potential welterweight chaos, and I really hope you found this deep dive into what's happening behind the scenes entertaining and informative. Drop your thoughts on these potential fights and all this back and forth drama in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear your takes on who should be fighting who next, and how you think these situations should play out. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more detailed breakdowns covering the latest UFC news, fight analysis, and drama as it continues to unfold.